Bienvenue à toutes et à tous à la présentation des résultats annuels 2019 du groupe Thales. A very warm welcome to those of you following us on our YouTube channel and on our Twitter account at Thales Group. Cette conférence de presse se tiendra en français et sera traduite en simultané en anglais sur YouTube. Avec nous ce matin pour présenter les chiffres clés 2019, revenir sur la stratégie, partager les perspectives 2020 et répondre à vos questions, Patrice Caine, président directeur général de Thales, et Pascal Bouchia, directeur général finance et système d'information. Je laisse la parole à Patrice et Pascal pour vous présenter les résultats annuels 2019 de Thales. Merci.
Merci beaucoup Peggy. Bienvenue à tous. À toutes et à tous, pardon, toutes et à tous, pour ces résultats annuels 2019. On va, comme d'habitude, commencer par quelques diapos, histoire de poser le décor. Et puis avec Pascal, on répondra à vos questions après, pendant le temps nécessaire. Alors si on regarde la première diapo, qui essaie toujours finalement de résumer en 3-4 grandes choses. Ah, c'est moi qui la zappe. Tac, ça marche, super. En 3-4 grands messages l'année 2019. Si je commence par les prises de commandes, commençons par le haut du compte de résultats, effectivement, on termine l'année avec un très très bon niveau de prise de commandes, et en particulier avec un quatrième trimestre qui était assez exceptionnel, j'y reviendrai plus tard. En termes de chiffre d'affaires, nous sommes en ligne avec l'objectif qu'on a ajusté, si vous vous souvenez, à l'automne dernier, c'était en octobre, début octobre, en ligne avec ça. En termes de performance opérationnelle, alors on la mesure en EBIT chez Thales, comme vous le savez, nous sommes au-dessus des objectifs qu'on s'était fixés. Et puis le free cash flow, qui est un indicateur qui est regardé aussi, qui est important, finit avec un niveau élevé à la fin 2019. Et puis un point plus qualitatif mais extrêmement important, l'intégration de Gemalto, qui a commencé le 1er ou le 2 avril de l'année dernière. Bon, on est en ligne avec notre plan de marche. Voilà pour ces quelques faits marquants. Maintenant, si on regarde les chiffres clés, alors ce tableau on l'utilise depuis pas mal d'années maintenant, donc qui permet de se repérer dans la durée. Vous voyez que grosso modo toutes les flèches montent. C'est déjà un premier constat, ce qui veut dire que l'année 2019 est une belle année en progression par rapport à 2018 sur tous les indicateurs. Donc prise de commande, je reviens sur ce premier indicateur. Vous voyez qu'on est à plus de 19 milliards, 19,1 milliards, alors en croissance importante par rapport à 2018, 19%. Maintenant, effectivement, Gemalto a joué un rôle important. On est à 4% de croissance en organique si effectivement on comparait des choses comparables. Pour autant, ce qui est important, au-delà de cette croissance importante, c'est le book-to-bill. Et vous le voyez, il est marqué dans la colonne, c'est 1,04, donc qui est un book-to-bill supérieur à 1, et qui effectivement est un indicateur avancé, si je puis dire, de la croissance future. Et on y reviendra plus tard avec Pascal quand on parlera de 2020 et même au-delà de 2020. Vous voyez que le chiffre d'affaires, lui aussi, suit une progression significative. On passe à 18,4 milliards, 16% de croissance, ou 0,8 si on raisonne en organique, sans les 9 mois de Gemalto que nous avons consolidés à partir du 1er au 2 avril 2019. La performance opérationnelle, donc l'EBIT, là aussi, on franchit la barre des 2 milliards pour la première fois, c'est un peu une barre psychologique, avec 2 milliards 8 pour être très précis. Très très belle performance opérationnelle et une augmentation donc de 19% ou de 4% en organique si on se compare à l'année 2018. L'autre indicateur ou solde intéressant est le pourcentage d'EBIT ramené au chiffre d'affaires. Dans nos métiers, on le regarde, les analystes le regardent, et vous voyez qu'on est à 10,9% en 2019, là où nous étions à 10,6% en 2018. Et là aussi, c'est un nouveau record pour le groupe en termes de profitabilité en 2019. Le résultat net ajusté suit la même tendance, si je puis dire, sans surprise, à plus 19%, lui aussi, de l'année 2018 à l'année 2019, à plus d'1,4 milliard. Le free cash flow opérationnel, une excellente performance, là aussi, en 2019, presque 1,4 milliard, 1,372 milliard, en très forte augmentation par rapport à 2018. Et puis le dividende qui lui aussi est en forte augmentation à 2,65 € l'action, là où nous étions à 2,08 € l'action en 2018. Voilà, c'est un peu le cockpit, le tableau de bord, si je puis dire, de nos indicateurs financiers. Maintenant, Pascal va rentrer plus dans le détail pour que vous ayez une bonne compréhension fine de ce qu'il y a derrière ces chiffres. Et puis, je reprendrai la parole en fin pour plutôt parler perspectives et synergie, et stratégie. Pardon.
Très bien, merci Patrice. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Donc, je vais suivre un ordre logique. Je vais parler d'abord des prises de commande. Ensuite, on passera en revue, comme c'est une annonce de résultats, notre compte de résultats. On va parler aussi un petit peu de génération de cash flow et puis de bilan. Donc, je démarre par les prises de commande. Première chose, on est quand même ravis par le niveau des prises de commande 2019. Je ne sais pas si vous l'avez en tête, mais on avait dit en début d'année qu'on visait un niveau de prise de commande d'à peu près 18 milliards d'euros. Et finalement, vous voyez qu'on finit un petit peu au-dessus de 19 milliards d'euros, donc finalement 1 milliard d'euros de mieux que prévu. Et c'est vrai qu'on a vu un dynamisme commercial sur la fin de l'année qui était assez exceptionnel. Au total, on a signé 21 grands contrats. Vous savez que les grands contrats chez Thales, c'est des contrats de plus de 100 millions d'euros. Et sur ces 21, 12 ont été signés au dernier trimestre de l'année 2019, avec de très très belles réalisations. Je vais vous en citer quelques-unes. Si je prends le marché du spatial, qui était en difficulté sur l'année 2019, on avait dit au mois d'octobre que nous étions, sur cette fin d'année 2019, en compétition sur 4 grands projets. Sur ces 4 grands projets, on en a gagné 3. Donc 3 sur 4. On a gagné un projet avec Eutelsat en France. On a gagné un projet en Égypte qui s'appelle Nilesat. Et on a gagné un projet également en Espagne. Voilà, le dernier contrat a été gagné par un concurrent nord-américain. Peut-être d'autres exemples dans un domaine différent, marché du transport. On a gagné au dernier trimestre de l'année un contrat très important en Australie pour le développement du métro de Sydney. Mais on a continué aussi à développer nos positions avec un grand contrat additionnel à Londres pour le métro de Londres. Et puis on a gagné, cette fois-ci dans le domaine défense et sécurité, au 4e trimestre, 6 grands contrats. Alors je ne vais pas tous vous les citer, mais sachez qu'au-delà de très beaux contrats signés en France, dans notre base, on dirait un peu classique domestique, on a gagné 2 grands contrats en Angleterre, avec la marine anglaise, dont l'un est assez emblématique puisque nous avons battu le concurrent domestique en nous alliant avec le groupe Babcock pour construire cette nouvelle génération de frégates pour la marine anglaise qui s'appelle les frégates dites 31. Voilà. On voit aussi sur ce slide que finalement les contrats de taille un peu plus faible, entre 10 et 100 millions d'euros, se sont aussi extrêmement bien comportés sur l'année 2019. Vous voyez, avec 5 milliards d'euros contre un peu plus de 4 milliards un an plus tôt. Et puis dernier point, là aussi, qui est très important, ce qui fait finalement notre activité au quotidien, c'est aussi les petits contrats. Les petits contrats, c'est les contrats de moins de 10 millions d'euros. Et vous voyez qu'ils ont continué à croître. Alors, bien évidemment, il y a l'impact de Gemalto, qui est une activité qui génère plutôt des petits contrats. Mais même en mettant Gemalto, j'allais dire, de côté, sur le Thales un peu plus historique, on voit que nous avons continué à croître dans ces petits contrats. Et aujourd'hui, ces petits contrats représentent à peu près, vous voyez, 9,5 milliards sur 19 milliards. Donc globalement, ces petits contrats représentent à peu près 50% des prises de commandes du groupe. Donc moi, j'ai vraiment le sentiment qu'on a performé en 2019, à la fois sur les petits, sur les moyens et même sur les grands contrats, avec des exemples que je
little,
vous
medium,
ai
and large
cités.
contracts with all the examples I
Alors,
have
quand
just
on regarde
quoted. If you
le
now
chiffre
look at
d'affaires,
the
cette fois-ci,
sales,
Patrice
Patrice,
l'a rappelé tout à l'heure.
said it just a few minutes ago.
Globalement, un chiffre d'affaires
Globally
en croissance
speaking,
de
the
16%.
sales
Alors,
are
il y a
up
bien
by
sûr
16%. Of course,
l'intégration de Gemalto.
this includes the integration of
Alors, vous
Gemalto.
voyez aussi la
But
dynamique
you will note
on a
also
présenté
that
sur
there's a
cette
good
planche
dynamic
entre les marchés matures et les marchés
between
émergents.
the mature
Et
and
c'est vrai
emerging
que les
markets.
marchés émergents,
It's
ça
true
a
that
été
emerging markets, which
un driver de croissance
had been a growth driver,
fort pour le groupe
a strong one
depuis
for the
quelques
group
années.
over the last few years.
Les arbres ne montant pas au ciel, on observe, et
As-
c'est prévu sur 2019, plutôt un ralentissement
well,
dans ces pays émergents.
there's
Et
a
au
cap
final, quand on
you
regarde
reach
sur la période 2015-2019,
at one point, so we
croissance dans les
thought
pays
that
émergents qui est
in
proche de
2019
9% en
we
moyenne
would
par an,
be
donc
capped.
donc forte.
But we see that in
Et on voit,
emerging
alors, par contre,
markets,
les
we
marchés
are
matures,
around 9%
une
in
croissance,
terms
et
of
c'est
growth, which is
normal,
quite
beaucoup, j'allais dire, linéaire.
significant. And for
Mais
more
vous
mature
voyez
markets,
cette
it's more
progressive
linear, of course,
accélération
but there's a
de
gradual
la croissance
ramping
de
up of
notre
growth
chiffre
of
d'affaires
sales
dans ces grands pays,
in these large, more
essentiellement
mature
occidentaux.
countries, Western, most of
Et
them.
ça vraiment,
countries.
ça
And
dénote
this really
cette demande
denotes
forte
strong
depuis quelques
demand,
années
which has
dans nos
been
business,
rising over the last few
notamment
years in
défense et
our
sécurité,
industry, in
mais
particular for
c'est
defense and
aussi
security,
sur
but
la activité
this
avionique,
holds
par
true
exemple,
for avionics as well.
dans les grands pays matures.
In the
La France,
biggest
l'Angleterre,
mature countries such as
l'Australie,
UK,
les
France,
États-Unis,
Australia, the
de plus en
US,
plus
and
l'Allemagne,
increasingly
sont des
Germany
pays
too.
qui sont des pays de croissance
These
pour,
countries are
pour le
growing
groupe.
countries for the
Alors,
group. Now,
descendons maintenant, si
let
vous voulez bien, le
us
compte de résultat
go
Donc,
down
vous
into
voyez,
more
chiffre
detail.
d'affaires,
Sales.
que je viens de vous commenter.
And that's for the
Et puis
profit
les
and loss.
différentes
So
lignes de
sales,
ce
you
compte
have
résultat.
a number of
Je vais
lines
passer
for
un
this
petit
profit
peu de
and
temps
loss
sur une
account.
ligne qui est très
There's a
importante
line that,
pour le
that I'll
groupe,
spend more time on,
qui est ce
which
qu'on
is
appelle
very
la-
important for the
la
group,
marge brute.
which we called gross margin.
Alors, oui, la marge brute
You see,
qui était un peu supérieure
It was
à 4
slightly
milliards
above
d'euros en
4
2018,
billion euros in
qui est passé
2018,
à un peu plus de 5 milliards.
is
Donc,
above
finalement,
5 billion now.
en un an de,
So within
temps, globalement,
a
notre marge
year,
brute, qui
our
traduit
gross
vraiment
margin, which
la
really
dimension du
reflects
groupe,
the size of the
a
group,
augmenté, vous voyez,
increased
23,6%,
by
ce qui est effectivement,
23.6%, which
Alors,
is
il y
quite
a bien sûr
outstanding.
l'acquisition
Of
de
course, this
Gemalto.
is partly due
Et
to
ce qui
the
est
acquisition of
important de
Gemalto, but
noter,
also
c'est
what
que
is worth
la marge
noting
brute du groupe
is that the
croît
group's
plus vite que le
gross
chiffre
margin
d'affaires.
grows quicker
Et vous
than
le
the
voyez par ce fameux
sales.
taux de marge brute.
And this is what
Vous voyez,
is reflected in
25,8%
the
en 2018,
gross margin rate,
27,5% en 2019.
27.5 in 2019 versus 25.8 in 18. And this is an important indicator because it reflects our drive to improve performance overall. The increase in this gross margin ratio reflects the better quality of our products, of our portfolio, what we call the value pricing, that is our capacity to convince our clients that our offers are unique and that this is acknowledged by the market and in selling price, but it also reflects our competitiveness endeavors like we have been doing over the last few years, and we are now reaping the benefits of this effort.
Le développement,
Like the development of our
département achat,
purchasing
mondialement,
department, which has been
avec de plus en
globalized
plus,
with an increasing
d'intégrer des
influence of
globaux
the fact that we
sur lequel
integrate
nous
global
pouvons développer
suppliers
la
for,
performance
with
de la
whom we can
compétitivité.
gain
On
in
peut y
terms of
mettre aussi,
performance and
des choses
competitiveness.
comme
Of
la
course,
progressive
you could
amélioration
include
année après
also
année
the
de l'exécution
gradual
de nos projets.
improvement
Je peux y
in
ajouter
terms
aussi,
of
l'ensemble
completion
des
of
efforts de
delivery of our
compétitivité,
projects, our
de
competitiveness
fonctions support,
efforts from the
toutes
support
choses
functions
que vous
also.
voyez dans cette
All
progression
these are reflected in the improvement of the gross margin, but also, of course, you can't deny that there's an impact of the Gemalto integration, but even if you set this aside, our gross margin ratio has been increasing year after year. And that's important to bear in mind because it will allow us later to reinvest in terms of innovation. And you see that the spend in terms of R&D for the group has been rising quicker than the sales. And this, in terms of percentage of, is quite visible. So more gross margin means more capacity to reinvest in R&D to develop innovation and prepare the group for the future. You see also that we invest our commercial expenses and administrative also, and we continue to work very strongly on controlling the general and administrative expenses. You see that they have been decreasing organically 2.7%. The ratio general expenses versus the rest of sales is also down. So this is an overall trend of the group in terms of performance for the group in this way of operating. So the last point you will see on this slide is the increase of our restructuring costs. We were 48 million in 2018, 102 in 2019, part of which is related to the integration and synergies for Gemalto, of course. So you see the bottom line, the result is the EBIT is up 10.9% and margin from 10.6% the previous year. So I will rapidly go through this slide, the next slide. So the EBIT is up to more than 2 billion in 2019, from 1.6, 1.7 in 2018, partly related to the Gemalto integration, but also due to the operational performance. And this is worth 156 million euros. But on the other hand, you see our reinvestment in terms of commercial costs and R&D is also quite visible here. Perhaps a few comments by business line. On this first slide, you have the aerospace industry, which is both aeronautics but also space, with order intakes that are weaker, which reflects what we explained about the space activity overall this year, the previous year. And in 2019, the situation was still a difficult one, up until the fourth quarter, when suddenly we were able to be awarded 3 of the 4 contracts that were tendered. So this decrease in the order taking also reflects the onboard in-flight entertainment industry, but there had been a strong sequence in 2018 in this particular industry, so it is a bit weaker in 2019 in comparison. Also a decrease in terms of the sales, minus 4%. This is related to the 13% decline in space sales. It was a significant drop at Thales, but also for our competitors. Whereas our aeronautics and avionics business was still growing in 2019. So the margins
du fait de la très
are
forte baisse
down
du
due to the
chiffre d'affaires du
strong
spatial.
decline of the space
Mais elle reste à des
sales,
niveaux qui sont,
but
quand
still,
on la compare, cette
if
marge
you
en 2019,
compared,
9,3% par rapport à notre
it's
séquence historique tout à fait favorable.
still
Alors même
9.3% in terms
qu'au-delà
of
de la
sales.
baisse
It's
du chiffre
quite
d'affaires du spatial,
reasonable.
nous avons
Whereas
dû
the
ajouter
drop
des
of the
effectifs
space
sur cette activité,
sales
donc plus
was
pour
quite
de restructuration.
more significant, plus the
Et dans le même
restructuring
temps,
costs. And
parce
at
qu'on
the
prépare
same time
l'avenir,
as we are preparing for the
global
future,
cette activité aérospatiale,
for the aerospace
bien que le chiffre d'affaires ait
industry,
baissé
for
en
the space
2019,
industry, although
nous avons
the
décidé
sales were down
d'augmenter
in
nos
2019, we
investissements
decided
de
to
recherche et
increase
développement
our R&D
pour préparer
investments to prepare
pour préparer l'avenir.
for the future.
Alors,
Now,
sur l'activité transport,
about the transportation industry
baisse
now,
des prises de commandes,
a
c'était
decline
aussi
in
anticipé,
the
hein,
order
on
intake,
reste
which we had
extrêmement
anticipated.
focalisé
We
en
remain
termes
very
de
much focused
prise
in
de
terms
commandes
of
sur cette
order
activité
intakes
transport,
for this
en
industry.
visant en fait les contrats, les
In
pays
fact, we
sur lesquels
aim
nous
the
considérons
contracts and the countries where we
que ce
deem
sont des pays
that
et des projets qui sont
the
véritablement
projects are
rémunérateurs et ne pas nous
profitable,
exposer,
and we
comme
would
on l'avait
not
fait il y a
like
quelques
to be
années,
exposed like we did a few years
à
back
des situations
to situations
dans lesquelles il y
where
a des risques
there's a risk
d'exécution.
in the delivery.
C'est important, vous voyez d'ailleurs
It's
la
important, and
marge
you will
qui
see
factuellement
that
baisse entre les
the
4,4%
margin
en
between the
2018
4.4 in
et les
2018 and the
2,9%
2.9%
simplement
in
pour vous dire
2019,
qu'en 2019,
just to show that in
nous avons deux
2019
effets un
we
peu
had
particuliers.
two
Le premier,
impacts.
c'est
The
notre
first
plan
is
d'amélioration de la
our
compétitivité en
plan
Allemagne,
to improve
qui se
competitiveness in
traduit par des
Germany,
charges de
which resulted
restructuration assez importantes,
in
avec notre
significant
volonté
restructuring costs, and
de
also our
développer notre base
willingness to
d'ingénierie en
develop our
Roumanie
engineering
en
basis in
baissant
Romania by
nos ressources
lowering
en
our
Allemagne.
resources in
Derrière
Germany.
ceci,
And
c'est aussi
behind this
bénéficier
also
d'une base
it
d'ingénierie
means that
plus
we will have
compétitive
a
en
more
Roumanie,
competitive
au
engineering
sens taux
basis
horaire,
in Romania in terms of hourly rate
bien évidemment, dans un
than
pays
it
comme,
would have been
comme
in
l'Allemagne.
Germany, obviously.
La deuxième
The
chose, c'est
second
que
thing is
nous avions
that
eu au premier
we,
semestre
in the
2019,
first half of
sur un
2019,
projet
on the
très
project
particulier,
that was quite specific,
un incident de
we
sécurité qui était le fait
encountered a
du
security
client
problem
et qui a
related
fait
to
en
our
sorte
client,
que le projet
which meant that the
a
project
été mis,
was
je dirais, on
had
hold
to
pendant
be
quelques mois.
put on hold
Si
for
on
a few
retraite ces
months.
deux
If you
événements, globalement, notre
take into
marge
account these two
EBIT
events,
sur
our
transport
EBIT margin for
sur 2019
transportation
est
for
plutôt à
2019
6%.
is more
La
like 6%.
performance
So the performance,
véritable,
the
organique
real
de
organic
cette
performance of
activité
this
en 2019 est à
industry in
6%,
2019 is at
par rapport à un peu plus
6%
de 4%
rather
en 2018,
versus
qui
4% in
traduit là aussi
2018. And this
globalement
again reflects
l'amélioration
the
progressive
gradual improvement
de cette activité.
this
Vous savez
business.
qu'on vise sur
You
le
know
long terme
that
pour cette activité
for the
un niveau de
midterm,
marge
we are
EBIT qui
looking
est
at
de l'ordre
an
de
EBIT
10%.
margin of
Voilà, donc
8%.
4% en
So
2018,
4% in
6% en
2018,
2019.
6 in
Donc une
2019.
trajectoire
So you
qui
see
devrait nous amener
that
sur le
this
niveau
should
de marge de
put us on the
8%
right track
dans les années
to
qui
reach
viennent.
8% in the next few
Alors,
years.
défense et sécurité, globalement, vous voyez
Defense and
des prises de commandes en
security,
forte hausse.
as
Je vais donner
you can
quelques
see,
exemples tout à
the
l'heure,
order
je vais
intake has
pas y
been
revenir. Progression de chiffre
increasing.
d'affaires qui est
I
un peu
won't
supérieure à ce que nous imaginions
come
au
back
début
on
d'année.
that.
6,4% de
Sales
croissance
are slightly
organique.
higher than expected
Et
at the
là,
beginning of the
vraiment,
year.
dans beaucoup de pays, que ce soit la
Plus
France, l'Angleterre, l'Australie,
6.4% in many countries, France, the UK, Australia,
avec globalement également une
and
qualité
as a
d'exécution de
whole,
projet qui est tout à fait satisfaisante.
quite a satisfactory
Un niveau de rentabilité qui a
execution
continué à
quality
croître en
for
2019.
projects. And
Et
you see
qui,
that
avec
profitability is
14% de
increased
marge,
in
nous
2019
situe au
with
meilleur
a
niveau mondial
14% margin.
en
We
termes de
are at one of the
profitabilité,
best world levels in terms of
globalement
profitability
dans ce type d'activité.
as a whole for that type of
Alors,
activity.
identité et sécurité numérique,
Identity
c'est l'activité dans laquelle nous
and
avons intégré Gemalto.
security from the digital point of view. So that was a small activity before we integrated Gemalto, 200 million sales. And you can see here the impact of the integration of Gemalto with margins which are satisfactory as a whole. An integration plan which is really in line with our expectations. As a whole, growth in line with what we expected, about 1%. Very good growth in banking activities, especially in the US. But conversely, we are merging protection and identity protection activities between Thales and Gemalto with a certain degree of reorganization, which has entailed some difficulties as a whole in 2019. So the June guidance for that activity was between 240 and 260 million euro for the year 2019. Actually, we've reached 264, which is slightly above the objective we had set ourselves. Now, EBIT is very important, but it's not everything. So it is also very important to generate free operating cash flow. And 2019 has also been an overperforming year in terms of generation of free operating cash flow. On the right-hand side of this slide, you can see our free operating cash flow compared to our adjusted net income, which is always very interesting to compare. We've converted nearly 100% of our free operating cash flow. So it's a very good performance, slightly above our expectations, and it is also due to action plans to optimize our cash flow that we had launched in the group early 2019, and that worked very well. Also, strong mobilization of all our teams, and I really feel that in 2019 we have progressed, structurally speaking, in the generation of free operating cash flow for Thales. So you have here on the left-hand side this bridge between EBIT and free cash flow. I'm not going to cover that point by point because it would be a little tedious. But what you have to remember is that we have a high level of cash flow, slightly higher than expected, and with a conversion ratio, 98%, which is very good. The conversion ratio between adjusted net income and free operating cash flow would have been perhaps 90 to 95%, and you see we've nearly reached 100%. Now, an important point that requires a little bit of explanation for expert journalists. Now, some more details on the balance sheet. End of 2018 and 2019, because at face value, at the end of 2018, we had a net cash which was slightly below 3.2 million euro, and 1 year later we have the reverse situation. Net debt minus 3.3. So what happened? We have against changed our accounting procedures, and Thales, like other groups, has implemented IFRS 16, accounting standard adopted by the whole of Europe. So we have to put all the leases and everything concerning real estate and other things as liabilities. So that's 1.5 million euro additional debt that we had to take into account in our balance sheet. So under those conditions, the actual net cash end of 18 should have been 1.7. Now, what has generated that cash? The free flow, what I just explained, but then there is also the cost of acquisition of Gemalto, which, of course, makes the bulk of that amount of 5.345 that you can see here. And of course, you have the payment of dividends, which, as you can see, counts for a little more than 460 million euros to get to a net debt of 3.3 billion euro. So if I set aside, well, actually, I see that a lot of groups are communicating on aggregates without taking into account IFRS 16. So before the implementation of IFRS 16 would have been more like 1.6 million end of 19 for an EBITDA, which would have been roughly 2.5 billion euro. I'm mentioning that because you have to remember that the Thales balance sheet is extremely robust. Rating has been very well rated by S&P and Moody's, with a debt which is a lot smaller than 1 for 2019. Now, I was expecting another slide on the dividend, but I think perhaps we have forgotten to include it in the presentation. Perhaps you can comment on that later. This is incredible. Now, strategy and outlook. Now, that slide is well known to you because we've been communicating on that for quite some time. And it actually synthesizes the 5 levers we work on to improve everything in our group, growth, reinforcing a customer-centric organization and culture. I'll come back to that. Number 2 is acting on operational performance and competitiveness and everything that goes with it. Number 3, since it is really the core of the group, is our high investment, how fast it progresses, why we should always keep investing. Number 4 is the so-called digital transformation. So that's really what we zoom onto in terms of R&D, because it's very important. It's been important in the last few years. And number 5, the 5th priority is to be successful in this integration of Gemalto, which is already progressing quite well. Now, if we have questions on that, we can answer them, Pascal and I. But this morning we have chosen to focus on 3 points about those 5 strategic priorities. First of all, going back to stepping up our growth initiatives, we would like to project ourselves in 2021 and perhaps beyond that, coming back, and it's a must, on our operational performance initiatives, because we'll improve and we'll explain how. And also space. There were a lot of issues about space in 2019, so I thought it would be useful to come back to that activity as well. Now, the first zoom, step up growth initiatives. In 2019, and that's important to understand the figures, we have to take into account what we've actually taken in terms of orders in 2019 and what we expect to do in 2020. Now, 2019 was a very good year in terms of order intake, with a very, very good 4th quarter. Let's give a few figures to illustrate that. In the fourth quarter, actually accounted for 47% of our orders, of annual orders, apart from RDS. And in December, we have a 30% order intake share. So that's the progression. It was a very steep curve going up at the end of the year. The second thing we should remember about 2019, well, as a whole, we've regained our leading position on commercial satellites and commercial telecom satellites. One of the indicators that is of interest to the profession is the number of satellites that are ordered every year everywhere in the world. 13 in 2016, and then we were at 10 in 2018, and now again in 2019 we've gone back to 13, so we've won 4 altogether, 3 at the end of the year and 1 with Indosat operator PSN in Indonesia. That order was placed in the summer. So our market share is 30%. But actually in terms of volume, not in terms of number of satellites, we would be rather around 40% of the market, which can actually provide confidence, trust in us, that we are at the appropriate technological level to win those competitions. 2019 was also a year in which we had major defense wins in both Europe and emerging markets. Well, France was very active in that field, supported by the military programming law contracts like Archange. I don't know if you've referred to that, Pascal. It will be a contract on new generation intelligence planes for the French Air Force, where we'll have a combined payload, listening and intelligence combined, communications plus radar, everything combined, and it's a remarkable technical challenge, technical performance. But also the UK, wonderful year, as you said, Pascal, especially with the T-31 contract, a new generation frigate contract behind Babcock, because Babcock is actually the prime contractor. Together with Babcock, we have won this contract against the historical stakeholder BAE, which for the first time in history, or as far as we can remember, has lost a competition. So we are very proud of having won that contract. But apart from T-31, Watchkeeper, the Watchkeeper contract is carrying on its life with the UK land forces, and we also have a submarine contract with the UK, but not just Europe. We have a rocket contract with India. We're aboard the Meko frigates in Egypt. Just a few names I'm referring to illustrate performance and defense, and also revenue synergy has to be mentioned with DIS, which is starting to generate additional contracts as compared to what Gemalto had planned in standalone. Why are we confident for 2020? Well, first of all, if we take a look at our pipeline, as we call it, the prospects we have, well, the pipeline is pretty full, not only in the field of defense, but also in the field of defense, which really provides quite a good level of confidence. And also, this is an endless story. We have undertaken new actions, or we've speeded up some actions to be even better in terms of marketing and sales. For example, we've decided to merge the two geographic entities of the group, the international entity with the European structure, to reorganize the structure and to reallocate resources between those countries which are the most dynamic ones. Another example is that of the implementation of a strategic account management model, which is even more complete than what we had before, with strategic account managers who can address specific accounts as a whole in a very comprehensive way. So we have a commercial interface with specific customers and an increased focus on servicing the installed base, because that's one of our strengths. That's the result of several tens of years of experience, and we have to focus even more on that. And also the synergies, the revenue synergies with DIS will carry on going up. And so we had a book-to-bill of 1.04, increasing by 1.04, which makes us say that 2021 will be a year in which our sales will be increasing. Now, the second point I'd like to focus on is that of operational performance of our group. I'd like to explain how we are going to further boost that operational performance. I think that we could pretty well illustrate that by taking a look at the graph here on this slide, on the left-hand side. Here we have an improvement to the gross margin and a decrease in overall expenses and G&A expenses. Now, if we de-zoom, in 2015, gross margin was 26.6%, and today it is 26.1%. So that indicator indicates what we've done in terms of competitiveness improvement. We've been working on harshly for the last few years, and at the same time, we have been able to keep G&A expenses down, a percentage constantly going down, 3.8% in 2015 and 3.4% last year in 2019. So if we take into account the fact that the gross margin is going up and that G&A expenses are going down, we've been able to have a better margin for maneuver, better leeway by 2.9, sorry, and it helps us improve our profitability and share part of this performance improvement with our shareholders. Now, on the right-hand side of the slide, I have included a few figures and illustrations which substantiate the fact that we can be confident and that we think we can further improve our sales. I'd like to talk about purchasing. Well, or procurement. We've started implementing a worldwide integrated procurement organization in 2018, and then the massification. I know the word is not nice, but actually it is turning to less suppliers in number and more strategic ones. 30% of our procurement or procurement or purchasing is concentrated on those strategic suppliers. It used to be only 10%. And we're going to develop our engineering competency centers in Romania and India. You referred to Romania and India, Romania when you talked about Germany, Pascal, and this is really a significant competitiveness lever. And third example, decided to actually have the digital factory, the 3 digital engineering centers that some of you know have visited Montreal, Paris, Singapore. I decided to merge them with the engineering function, which operates all the engineering centers everywhere in the group. Why? Because since those digital factories are now full speed, mature, actually now we will be able to spend more time on the circulation of this, the spreading of those engineering practice to the rest of the Thales group. So take the best, reap the best of that engineering to serve the rest of engineering in the group. And fourth example, shared services. So we are carrying on implementing shared support services centers and fields of accounting, especially, and another initiative called Cash, simply Cash, to further to help managers focus on cash performance. And we've started seeing the first results in 2019. Remember what we said in terms of operation cash flow, and indeed that will go on in 2020.
The third focus is the space industry. Space, which will be a significant driver to resume growth starting from 2021 and beyond. Based on our models, there will be a slight negative growth in 2021. It's a kind of ballistic in a way due to the order books. It's not no scope, no. But the reason we are confident in the resumption of growth for the space industry at Thales from 2021 is that there are a number of factors for this. Let me start by the bottom of the slide. We will build upon a number of significant opportunities in this industry. The right-hand side diagram shows this. The announcements made at the ministerial conference at the end of 2019 for the institutional market quite positive signals between Siemens and between 2018 and 19. We moved from 10.3 billion to 14.4 billion in terms of country contribution, which means an annual growth of 6% per annum, which is a significant growth rate. Not everything will be for Thales, of course, but this is an overall background which is quite positive on this institutional market. The telecom market, you see the threshold for the whole industry from 20 in 2011, 16 to 10 in 17, 18, and a slight resumption in 2019 with 13. But beyond this number, what makes us confident for the future is our market share. The fact that for a given market, 13 last year, well, for this bulk, we were able to convince a number of clients to trust us. 30% market share, 40% in terms of value, which is nice. And so this is why we keep an eye on this indicator. Beyond the market effect, this is what we do ourselves in-house to be sure we are well positioned. We are the leaders worldwide for the VHTS satellites, and this leadership, of course, will be maintained
and we will even boost it in as much as we can, in particular with a new range of satellites, the Space Inspire, which is a space revolution in a way to make it, in fact, it means that the satellites will be fully reconfigurable, flexible from the land, even though they are already on orbit, because the software running the electronics are such that they allow reconfiguring the beams and the mission of a given satellite. Typically speaking, an operator could launch a satellite with a broadcasting mission at a given point in time, because maybe the broadcasting is diminishing, or they want to rebalance out their assets, they can turn it into a telecommunication satellite, which is a real revolution in the field, because up to now you would configuring a satellite on ground, and once it was up in the air, it was supposed to continue to do what it had been configured for. Now, of course, we keep and maintain this unique expertise in terms of constellation at Thales, with the names you know, the last one being Iridium next, and then Global Star and others before that. And of course, we worked on our cost base, as we were the first ones, and sometimes we were challenged for this, but we were the first one to insist on the cost base. And last year we launched a program to reposition some 450 people in the group, and the cost base, if you look at 18-19, it went down by 11%, roughly. So it means that we regain or maintain our competitiveness in a market that is struggling. So there's so much for the space industry. Now, a few slides before we come to the Q&A session. If we zoom back from our core markets, you all know about these industries, quite certain. Perhaps the takeaway is the bottom title there, that we are faced with a number of uncertainties in the landscape. We heard a lot about the B737 MAX in last year. However, the aeronautics industry, well, is challenged. There are tariffs issues between for the sale of Airbus aircraft to the United States. This is part of the global picture as well. And also the impact of the coronavirus is something that we need to keep monitoring in the coming weeks and more. So we've already had this habit of sailing and riding under uncertainties, including political uncertainties. So this is nothing quite new. However, 2020 will come up with a number of new challenges where we hope to demonstrate our resilience as a group faced with these external factors of uncertainty. And all this led us to propose a number of 2020 objectives to the financial market. In terms of order taking, of course, this reflects exactly what I was telling you from a qualitative point of view. The book-to-bill ratio is above 1 for 2020, which reflects our confidence in our capacity to perform in terms of sales, and also gives credit to our prospect of growth after 2021. Our commitment for 2020 is to be above 1, but 2021 should confirm the growth. The sales between 19 and 19.5 billion euros, it's guidance. Is it large or not? I don't know, but we calibrated it in order to take on board the uncertainties that we see. But like other operators that have the same questions, in terms of EBIT margin, operational performance, you see our commitment to
continue moving forward and improve by 20 to 40 BPS versus a pro forma 2019 with 12 months of Gemalto, not 9. Did you say this, Pascal? Yeah. So just let's focus on this. The published is 10.9. It was with 9% of Gemalto. If we do a pro forma with 12 months of Gemalto, it stands at 10.6%. The reason is that the end-of-year months were more profitable than the beginning. So it's kind of relative. So now, if you want to compare comparable on a like-for-like basis, in 2019 we would be at 10.6%, and then moving to 10.8 or 11% of EBIT does show an intrinsic improvement of our operational performance, of our EBIT margin. Last word, which is not about financial matters, but I'm certain some of you will be interested in this. The group is activity, how we invest in the future on in a number of areas. Recruiting, this is something that the public at large is interested in. You see that since 2016 the group has hired between 5,000 and 6,000 people, which is quite considerable for a group our size. 2020 will be just about along the same line as 6,500. That's what we plan to do. And you see that France is also very much along this strand with 2,500. And if you look at the back of the rear mirror, 40% is a fairly reasonable figure. So every 4 out of 10 hires are in France, roughly. So over the last 5 years, if I look back to 2016, we will have hired between 25 and 30,000 people, which is quite significant for a group our size. Of course, we've listed a few awards that we were given in 2019 that reflect our societal commitment, the DGSI, for instance, our capacity to innovate. If you look at the top 100 global innovators, our capacity to be attractive also, Glassdoor and alumni ranking also. The medals that you see in the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side of the slide, all illustrating the external recognition of our group and its achievements. And R&D as well, which is rather good indicator of how we prepare for the future. Clearly, the operational performance of the group has been improving year on year, but never at the expense of the preparation for the future. We are very keen on preparing for the future, and you see between 2017 and 2023, the progress of R&D is quite sharp. We include all of R&D here, self-funded by the group, and the light blue part, there's a .8, say 800 million euros for 2017, and 1.4 billion in 2023. And if you include all of the R&D together, self-funded and that which is integrated into the programs that we deliver for our clients, it means that we move from 3 billion in 2017 to 4.5 billion in 2023. That is 25% growth for the self-funded part at least. So I think this slide closes our presentation with Pascal, and the floor is now open for your questions. Good morning, Christian Mackenzie from Fast News. In fact, I've got 3 questions. Could you tell us the percentage of income represented by every sector or industry? I was looking forward to getting a pie chart with defense, space, etc. You spoke about the uncertainties that we need to keep an eye on, like coronavirus, but you didn't mention the Brexit, if there's any potential impact. And the third question is that in the defense industry, which I'm interested in more particularly, I know Airbus is faced with serious problems. So would there be perhaps any considerations about merging the defense and space activities of Airbus and Thales? Is this somewhat in the pipeline? In fact, you do. We didn't work out the maths, but we can still do it. But you have all the figures in absolute values. Defense and security, transportation, digital identity and security, and defense and space. So if you give us a few minutes, we'll work it out for you rapidly. The group, after the acquisition of Gemalto, is 40% in the defense industry and 60% in civilian markets, for a group that is slightly below 20 billion euros. So 60% civilian activities, that's about 12 billion euros. And out of the 12, you have transportation at about 2 billion. Aerospace, around 5.5.7-ish, and digital identity and security, which accounts for a 3.2 or 3 billion, give or take a few. About Brexit, well, it's true we didn't mention it because we had quite a few questions last year and the year before. In fact, the impact on a group like Thales will probably, on the face of it, is something that we can keep under control. Unlike what you think, a group like Airbus, which communicated a lot on the potential impact of Brexit, we are not at all in the same position. If that answers your question. Because our business in the UK serves essentially British clients and exports from the UK, but more to areas outside Europe. On the other hand, in terms of supply chain, when our activities in the UK source their products in Britain or outside Europe, but it's very seldom in Europe that they source their products. What we buy most of the time is electronics. So from this point of view, the tariff barrier effect, if there was any, would be little impacting at order one. But what could be is the situation of the British economy, because we are positioned in markets which are more or less dependent on the good health of the British economy, either because the clients are public, state-owned clients like the Ministry of Defense, or close to being, like if you deal with the London Underground, it's not really the state, but it's an institution which has an investment capacity dependent on the overall good health of the country. So it's more that which we need to keep an eye on than the tariff barrier. So we didn't say much because at this stage it's either a limited impact or we just don't know, because it will depend on what is decided, negotiated with Europe, what impact it will have on the UK, etc. About your third question about the potential merger of Airbus and Thales in the space sector. Well, that would be something big. I don't see ourselves building a 400M or Kazakh or the Eurofighter. I don't think our industrial partner would like this. No, the question is more about the space industry, perhaps, yeah. Because we know many tend to believe that the simple solution when the market is contracting is to merge the players. It can be the easy way out, but it's not necessarily the best solution. I can try to demonstrate and tell you that we have a strategy to continue to invest, to develop. I think we have everything in hand to have a business that is profitable and growing. So I don't see any need for any such strategic operations on our space business. And even so, even if it would raise a number of problems between governments, because these activities are, I mean, it's not indifferent. So what would the Italian government or German government, English government say? I quote those government where Airbus and ourselves are present. The other area of questions, what would the competition authorities say? They don't like monopolies. We are two major players with OHB, two big dominant. I don't think this is the kind of thing that the competition authorities would be very keen on. And also, it's not only about Europe, but also the United States. It's not only about where you are based, but also where your clients are based. So it wouldn't, on paper, not something very easy to implement. And also, getting back to my first point, we have a strategy, we are confident, we believe in this area, and I don't see any need to make such strategic moves to move ahead. Hello, Ministry of French Ministry of Defense. A number of governments have allotted a number of funds for combat demonstrator aircraft, and also the drones and a number of other devices. So what does that mean for Thales? Are you happy with this partnership and your position vis-a-vis Airbus? And basically, what are you going to be doing with the money that is made available, the distribution of tasks, etc.? I have yet another more specific question about transportation in the UK. I would like to know whether Thales is involved in the high-speed link between London and the north of the UK. And the last question, if I may, what is the exact exposure to China in terms of manpower, factories, sales relationships?
Now, concerning the CAF, are we happy? Yes, of course we are. We are very happy. This is wonderful news for Europe. So 2 + 1 countries, 3 countries, yes, participate, and we will participate with a lot of enthusiasm, and we're very willing to participate. It's not our only contribution, but I'd like to refer to that because it's perhaps more visible. We have, among others, made a partnership with Airbus on one of the 5 pillars, as it's called in that jargon, which has several names: a connected, collaborative combat, or combat cloud, or system of systems. Take whichever name you like the best. But actually, the connection of the relations between existing platforms or future platforms to demultiply their effects that agreement with Airbus is a wonderful agreement, and we are going to play a significant role in that respect. And then there's the rest of it, some things are going to come about in the next months. Probably,
sur les senseurs.
probably because it's a project work on sensors.
Mais notre apport dans la simulation,
That's one of the main pillars, but we can contribute in the field of simulation, in the design of high-level architecture, and all that is going to concur to that, to converge into that big project. But then I can't tell you anything more specific on who's going to work as in platforms, who's going to do that. But the teams and myself are all very enthusiastic about it. Now, as to transport, the announcement made by the Prime Minister is very recent. Now, if there is signaling to do, we are interested. Now, between, the announcement and the first contracts, it may take some time to really become concrete, but yes, indeed, it is a subject in which Thales could potentially position itself. Now, as to China, let's may give you a few figures. That's 2% of the sales of the group by destination, and we are 2,400 people in China, if I'm not mistaken, including people working on joint ventures, because we have a significant joint venture with Shanghai Electric in the field of transport. So, so much for facts. If the underlying question is the impact of coronavirus, I'm going to answer that right away. Now, as a market, a destination country, 2% is manageable. First thing, that's the first thing you have to take into account. However, as everyone in industry, we have to be careful about the impact on our supply chain. When we produce in Singapore or in Europe a certain type of equipment for our customers with electronic equipment or components coming from China, we may witness a slight slowing down or partial stoppage of some lines, but we really have to pilot its site, we will adjust ourselves, we will go up or down in our forecast of supply, but everything changes every day, so we can't really tell you more than that. It has a limited impact for the time being. And Bauer from Les Echos. Is the announced merger between Alstom and Bombardier going to change the competition landscape for you? And another question, should you get ready for legal actions such as what Airbus is facing? Because we sometimes hear that you may have commercial agents whose role may be disputed, so it could lead to the same procedure, pleading guilty in arrangements with the financial courts. Now, regarding Alstom and Bombardier, now if we take a look at what Bombardier accounts for in terms of signaling, they are a smaller player than we are because they generate 700 million euros. So the addition of Airbus, what Airbus and what Bombardier's, what Alstom and Bombardier are doing, is not going to change the game. We are behind Siemens, and I would say that adding 700 million euro with what Alstom is doing is not a game changer. So we've got everything ready to carry on developing, and there's no no questioning about the critical size. And I keep saying that one thing is the size of our activity, 2 billions. We are ranking second in that respect, second in the world. But the strength of that activity is that it benefits from a group of 1.9 billions, and it benefits from technologies that come from other parts of the group that a pure player could not afford: cybersecurity, IoT, and artificial intelligence. If we only had IT, we wouldn't benefit from all the expertise we have in security, knowing that Thales weighs more than 1 billion in cybersecurity. IoT is really a good example. There's a revolution called the rail IoT, and the fact that Gemalto has integrated the group is wonderful, because not only does it save buying IoT from outside, but also we have engineers who really know about that at DIS. And there's another revolution in the world of transport which is going to happen: self-driving trains, or we have demonstrations going on with SNCF or Deutsche Bahn, or it's also been done in New York. We are working for the long term. Even though this technology is in its infancy, we have quite a good technical positioning in this field, but it doesn't come from only from our activity, but we're supported by those technology experts we have in that respect. So it's not a game changer for Thales, at least in the field of signaling. Now, there was another question on what's been written here and there on what I call what has happened to Airbus, and I'm not going to comment on that. They have expressed themselves, and the situation at Thales, it has nothing to do with it. Even though some articles kind of invented some things or added things, we should not take what those articles say for granted. We are not at all in a similar situation. Since OC2 1999 directive, the guideline for the last 20 years, we've increased our vigilance on that, and we have people, external people, coming to audit us, and they consider that we are at the highest level of the food chain, as one of the experts put it. So probably the most serious, the most robust level in terms of business ethics. Michel Quederol, 2 questions. First of all, in 2019, we heard a lot of Thales bashing, especially in terms of some defense programs execution, and we really wonder whether that was deserved or not. Could you answer that first question? You talked about the CEMIN ministerial conference. Given what France has invested in the sectors it chose to invest in, well, we haven't seen much investment in future technologies, especially satellites. Even though you are multi-domestic, what is your analysis as to the potentialities or repercussions of the CEMIN on your business? As to the first question, I don't really know what I could tell you, except for the fact that when customers are unsatisfied, we have to take that into account and do something about that. So I do distinguish between what some people write and what actually happens. In a very technological group like Thales, it is quote-unquote normal, standard procedure to be sometimes up against technical challenges. If it were not the case, that would mean we would not take enough risk and we would not be innovative enough. So of course, this has to be controlled and reasonable, but that's the way it is. And when some customers are not satisfied, we deal with that very seriously. But then we have to progress. We have to go forward. And if we de-zoom, as I like to say, and if we take a look at the operational performance of Thales on nearly all our activities, we are at an international level, or not really far from that. Now, as to Semin, I can't really rate the contributions of this or that state. France made its best efforts, and we can only thank France for that. But now, in the field of satellites, which is what we're mostly interested in, there is enough funding, there are enough projects on the table so that we can trust in our future. I know it's a comprehensive answer, but it's true. We are in France, but we're also multi-domestic. As you said, the contribution of Italy was very strong this year and does show that the strong interest for that country to invest into that sector, Thales. And there are other sectors where we are, other countries where we are present. I'm thinking of Belgium and Spain. Some national contributions will help us sustain the investment that the private company cannot fund 100%, clearly. So it is an industry in which I trust. Of course, we could do better, we could get more, a bigger share, but however, we can trust in our future in that field, in space.
Bonjour, Vincent Namijon, Challenge.
Vincent Namijon.
Je ne fais pas du Thales bashing du tout.
I'm not going to undertake Thales bashing, but I'd like to come back to the ACCS contract, the axe control contract for NATO. So it is the French share in and the French shot was a bit worried about that and said that it could be cancelled in 2020. Could you say something about that, and how well is that program faring? A program important for NATO. Now, I'll try to keep it simple. And then we can have a separate session to go into more details if you wish. So it is a program which started in 1999, that is to say 20 years ago, at the time of, well, not Cold War, but early post-Cold War. And it doesn't involve all NATO countries, but some NATO countries wanted to get a very holistic system, quote-unquote, for preparation and conduct of air operations on a scenario which would be sort of the Reds against the Blue scenario. Now, 20 years later, things have changed. Now, I'm going to refer to an indicator which illustrates that complexity. Europe and NATO is complex. I mean, the program involves 15 million lines of code. But the group has never let a customer down. NATO in that instance, and a few countries which have an interest in that country, in that program, have, we've never let a customer down. So we've put our best experts on that to carry on progressing. But it is not only a technical issue. If the issue was only of a technical nature, the program wouldn't have taken 20 years to develop, because you can find in air traffic a lot of programs with 15 million lines of code as well. I don't know what the chief of staff of the French Air Force said. It doesn't seem to reflect what I heard when I met him, but we are all very focused to get on with it and to serve all the nations which are involved in the project. But if you want to spend a little more time on that, we can have an ad hoc session, because it is slightly complex. Pierre Tran.
Oui, mise à jour de marché australien pour les sous-marins.
What would you say about the Australian market and the submarine Australian market and the sonar? Could you give us also an update on the delivery of the Spy Ranger drone for the land forces? This is very specific. This is a question for a specialist. Now, our sonars for the future Australian submarine, well, the competitive dialogue carries on. Lockheed Martin is actually piloting the competition, and I can't tell you more, because actually it's Lockheed Martin's turn to play, so to speak. We've answered their questions, but we're not in the driving seat for that project. The project is progressing. Now, when will there be a capacity to decide? I can't tell you more. Spy Ranger, that's really a question for a specialist. Well, the first deliveries will take place in the first quarter of this year, so we are in line with the plan that we have agreed to with DGA and the land forces. The question is being raised off microphone. It was to be delivered in the first quarter. It's going to go on to the operational campaign, and then there will be tests, and that's the planning agreed with the French land forces and DGA. Stéphane Maransky from Aerospatium. When you referred to face, well, you referred to space a lot, but I'd like you to talk about IFE and in-flight entertainment and the development of the market. And following the disastrous meeting last week, the FEDEF and the reduction in the budget, what would that mean for the Thales Group? Could you tell us more?
IFE connectivité.
Well, IFE connectivity, what can I tell you? Well, what new could I say? Well, it's a growing market, and strongly so for the connectivity part. And Thales is one of the main players in this area. It is business that's been growing by 10% year on year. And it's about the capacity for a passenger to benefit from broadband connectivity like at home. It's a market that is still looking for itself, with a business model yet to be defined, but it's very much in synergy with our IFE strategy and the success of tomorrow's IFEs will be the convergence of this more traditional part of the multimedia, which may be adapted depending on the demand of passengers, whether in business first class may not be the same as that which it is for economy, because in economy they may just need high bit rate connectivity for a tablet, whereas in business class they will like to have large screens, higher throughput connectivity, and are ready to pay for that. So intrinsically, it is a business that is going to grow, that is growing, one where we are one of the very few players. There are two players, both in the traditional IFE part, multimedia and connectivity. And this is an industry that resonates very much with our space industry, because it is dependent on satellite connectivity. And as you know, Thales is provider of high throughput satellites, broadband satellites. So it's one of the drivers for the space industry, and this connectivity is also a driver for our IFE business. So intrinsically speaking, we have a very positive view on this. Now, for the very short term, there could be impacts in terms of order taking, project development of the airlines, depending on what happens with the coronavirus. There could be some short-term impact, which doesn't change the more mid-term evolution, where the world of passenger transport will need this essential functionality without which we can no longer live. That is, round-the-clock connectivity, broadband connectivity. That's what all of the passengers require now. So it's an area of growth. And to add up to what Pascal said, I was just thinking what was new versus what we had said earlier. In 2019, there's something new that I'd like to share with you. Is the decision by a number of few American airlines, one of which said it very explicitly, that is Delta Airlines, that they wanted to switch to free Wi-Fi. And the consequence, from the moment you offer free Wi-Fi on board, well, it has a technical an operational consequence, that is to provide broadband connectivity in aircraft. To this point, connectivity works for emails. If you have attachments, it's struggling, and don't talk about streaming or online games. So the decision by Delta is one that will shape the future, because the choice we made a few years back with SES to invest by building a VHTS, new generation VHTS satellite totally dedicated to air mobility. It's not fully flexible like Space Inspire, but still flexible with 200 spot beams to allocate the power of the satellite on the aeronautic route where there's more need for, depending on the presence of aircraft or not. This technological choice we made with the switch to the Ka band also means that we would be one of the very few, if not the only one, to have the technical and technological capacity to provide real broadband connectivity on planes, like Delta Airlines is aiming to do. So that's a new development, and we'll monitor the tender. Will they go all the way or not? But it is indeed something of great potential, if not significance. Your second question was about the European budget. What can I say? The question was not heard, sorry. That's the way. It's good news.
Comments are
Attendons
made
que tout ça
off the
se
mic, so
stabilise.
they cannot be translated, sorry.
Attendons peut-être que tout ça se
Let
stabilise,
us wait
voilà,
and
que ça
see
retombe,
till
voilà,
everything
la poussière retombe, si je puis dire. Puis, on
stabilizes,
essaiera d'y voir
and
clair et
then
de
we'll
dire
try
exactement
and
ce que ça veut dire,
see
mais,
and
voilà,
read
je sais
through
que c'est difficile d'en dire plus.
the sand.
Oui, demain, il y a un
Yeah,
sommet
tomorrow
franco-italien
there's
qui
a
est important pour Naval Group.
summit between France and Italy, which will be important for a number of players. So I'd like to know your position versus this potential alliance, and are you also looking forward to certain things for Thales for this in the context of this French-Italian summit? Not that I know. I have in mind the naval topic with an intergovernmental agreement, but for the space, nothing new. No, not that I know, no.
Je pense que dans le spatial, si je vous complète peut-être.
And as far as the space industry is concerned, the cooperation with TAS is structural and well established. So it's not because nothing is happening, it's just because it's well on track and where it's new is for the naval industry, because there was no real cooperation or only based on program. Whereas now it's more structural, or getting to, with a joint venture set up between Phil Canterbury and Nevergood. Are there any other questions before we close the session? Well, thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.